Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in here tonight. My name's Bobby. This is Bernie. We're from Hapanowicz Associates. H&A has been helping Verizon employees with their retirement planning since the late 90s. We've helped hundreds of employees through that time plan for and transition into retirement. We've seen dozens of ISP offers in that time, and we understand this can be a very exciting time, right? Everybody hopes that an ISP offer lines up with when they want to retire. When an offer is announced, it also leads to some very important decisions having to be made in a relatively short period of time, right? Whether or not to retire early is one of the biggest decisions that you can make in your career. And so that's what we're here to help with tonight. So a couple of things that we'll be discussing here today. We'll talk about the components of the ISP offer. We'll talk about some of the considerations that you should be keeping in mind when deciding if this offer is right for you. And most importantly, we're here to answer your questions, the questions that you may have brought with you here tonight. So if you have any questions, feel free throughout the course of the webinar to just drop them in the chat box. Should be at the top of your screen. And with that, we'll move right along. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. H&A Hapanowicz Associates is not affiliated with Verizon or the CWA in any way. That's a good thing that allows us to work with you and provide advice, not just now while you're employed by Verizon, but in retirement as well. So Bernie, how about we get started with the offer highlights?
Absolutely. Let's go over and overview the highlights of the offer. First, the window of acceptance. It's going to start next week on October 16th, and it will run through November 14th. That'll be the expiration day. If you submit an application and you are accepted, your last day of work will be December 2nd. So let's move on to a very important part, the cash payments that are connected to the offer. First is a very generous voluntary termination bonus of $50,000. That's a gross number, of course. It's subject to all applicable taxes. The next section is the special ISP payment, and that is calculated at $2,200 for each year of credited service that you have, up to a maximum of 40 years. So the maximum benefit there is $88,000. The third payment is a reimbursement allowance for job searching expenses or relocation expenses. The maximum amount is $3,750, and that's calculated at $750 per year of credited service that you have. One thing to keep in mind with this allowance is that these expenses need to be approved before you incur them.
All right, let's move on to some of the other components of the offer and how they impact your retirement benefits, starting with the pension benefit. So as a component of a special ISP offer, the special ISP accelerates the next pension band increase. So the next increase per your union handbook for a Mid-Atlantic associate would be on June 29th of next year. The ISP offer accelerates that if you were to accept the offer. There's also a guaranteed interest rate for the pension lump sum conversion. So if you were to retire on December 2nd, as part of the ISP offer, but wait to elect or commence your benefit until a future quarter, you would receive the better or the lower interest rate that leads to the higher lump sum between this quarter, the quarter that you're retiring in, and the quarter that you commence your pension benefit in. Finally, there is a waiver of the age-based pension reduction. So many of you might be aware that if you're retirement eligible under the age of 55 with less than 30 years of service, there's a 0.5% penalty per month under the age of 55 applied to your pension. That's called an age reduction. And under this special ISP offer, that age reduction is eliminated from your benefit. Your offer packet also goes into some detail regarding your healthcare and other benefits, whether you're retirement eligible or non-retirement eligible. There's detailed information there. Again, we recommend that you go to pages 9 and 10 and review those pages closely, and we can help you do that on an individual basis if you'd like us to. One thing I will point out regarding your medical benefits is all employees, whether you're retirement eligible or not retirement eligible, are eligible for their employee medical benefits for 6 months after the termination date, December 2nd, before moving on to retirement benefits if you are retiree eligible, or COBRA if you're not retirement eligible. Other components to your dental, vision, healthcare, etc. Again, pages 9 and 10 of the packet.
Okay, so let's talk now about the special ISP payment and how those payments are made and some of the considerations that are connected to them. First of all, if your payment allowance is more than $10,000, you have two options. The first option is to have the payment made in monthly installments over 4 years. So that would be 48 payments of equal amounts following the month that you terminate with Verizon. The second option is to take half of that payment in a lump sum and the other half in equal installments over 4 years. The third consideration to keep in mind is the exceptions to this rule, and they really center around your 67th birthday. Verizon, for whatever reason, wants to have these payments end at your 67th birthday. So if you are within 48 months of your 67th birthday, the full amount, you'll still get the full amount of your payment allowance, but it's going to be delivered over a smaller period. It'll be delivered over in monthly installments, starting the month of your after your termination, and then ending in the month that you turn 67. If you are 67 or older, you're going to get the full amount of your payment allowance in one lump sum payment.
Some complexity, some nuance associated with that payment allowance. And with that said, we have a few examples here to help depict how that payment allowance works depending on your age and how close you are to your age 67. So in our first example here, John Smith is age 62 and he has 24 years of service. So first of all, John will receive a $50,000 lump sum payment as his lump sum bonus should he elect the ISP offer. John would also be eligible for a payment allowance of $52,800, and that is his years of service, 24 years of service multiplied by $2,200. And John has two options for electing that payment allowance. He can either take the entire balance in 48 monthly increments of $1,100 before taxes, or his second option is to receive half of that as a lump sum, $26,400, and receive the remaining half in 48 monthly increments of $550 before taxes.
So continuing with this example with John Smith, let's assume he's a little older. He's now 65 and he now has 27 years of service. His options are the same generally, except for the monthly installment part of his payment allowance, it's going to be condensed. Instead of over 48 months, it's going to go down to 24 months. So in this example, of course, in both scenarios, John is going to receive the $50,000 lump sum bonus. If John decides to take option one, he's going to receive $59,400 in payment allowance, which is 27 years of service multiplied by the $2,200 per year of credited service. That's going to be paid out over 24 equal monthly payments of $2,475 before taxes. In option two, he can take half of that $59,400 or $29,700 as a lump sum payment, and then the other half will be split into 24 monthly increments of $1,237. And remember that those 24 months is due to the fact that John is only 2 years away from age 67, and the payment allowance installments must be ended by that age.
Yeah, that key difference being how far John is away from his age 67. Now in this final example, John Smith is 67, and now instead of 27 years of service, he has 29 years of service. So his payment allowance, his termination allowance will be $63,800, 29 times $2,200. And he only has one option: to elect his lump sum termination bonus and to elect his payment allowance as a lump sum as well. So he'll receive a total of $113,800 as a bonus. Okay, so those are the components of the offer. Next, we'd like to talk about some of the considerations that you should be keeping in mind. We'd like to talk about some of the most frequently asked questions that we've been hearing here in the past couple of days, as well as questions that we've gotten in prior ISP offers as well. Again, I see one question in the chat box here. Feel free to submit any other questions and we'll be sure to address those as they come as well. But let's start from the top here, Bernie.
Yeah, sure. And I just want to add to Bobby's comment that, so these are some of the questions that we've seen so far, but we really want to use these as a prompt to encourage you guys to submit your own questions. So we'd love to hear from you. There's no question that's out of bounds. Please feel free to type away and send us whatever questions you have. So let's get started on this list. Taxes, or taxes withheld from the payments. And the answer to that is an easy yes. Taxes are withheld from all cash payments, including the termination bonus, as well as the ISP payments, whether they are the lump sum payment or the monthly installment.
Federal, state, local, like your Verizon wage income. Yeah. How do I apply for the ISP? Okay, so within your offer packet, there is an employee volunteer form, and that is page 7 of the packet. And there's a couple of items that you'll check off on here. There's a box at the top of the sheet next to the word volunteer that's in red, and you'll just check off that box. Next, you'll check off the option, the payment allowance option that you want to elect. So when we went over the 3 examples, that's the payment allowance. You'll check off which option, half bonus, half lump sum, half monthly payments, or the entirety in monthly payments. And then finally, you'll sign and date the paperwork and fax it in by November 14th, 11:59 p.m. on November 14th. If you want to revoke your offer, there's another form, page 15, called the election revocation form. And you would simply complete that and have that in by no later than 11:59 on November 14th.
Next question that we've been seeing a lot of is, when should you request your pension election paperwork? So generally there's a 90-day window. You must be within 90 days of your termination date to apply for your or request your pension election paperwork. And we are within that window with this offer. So you can get started right away with requesting your pension paperwork. So we recommend that you do get started right away. The sooner the better. It gives you time to consider your pension. There's a lot of other items that you need to work on as we go through this process. So the earlier, the better. One thing to keep in mind that we like to remind Verizon employees of is that paperwork needs to be filed by the 10th of the month in order for you to get your pension check by the 1st of the following month. There's a 10th of the month deadline. So we'd want to make sure that your pension paperwork was in before December 10th in order for you to get that pension check at the beginning of January. And remember, the termination date is December 3rd. Your last day of work is December 2nd. So that's running up very close to December 10th. So again, just to reiterate, the earlier, the better in terms of requesting your pension election paperwork. You can do it online, but we really recommend that it's done via a phone call to the Verizon Benefits Center, and we will participate on that call with you. We'll be there. We'll help you walk through the process and get all of your questions answered about getting your election paperwork prepared and sent to you. Another item to keep in mind is you can do this soon. You can do it now. You can get your paperwork prepared and sent to you. And then if you decide not to take the offer, you decide not to retire today, you simply hold on to the paperwork, never file it with Verizon, and it expires after a certain amount of time. I think it's 90 days, right?
After 90 days.
After 90 days, it expires. So there's no downside to getting started early, nothing but upside. So we recommend that you get started very soon on your pension election paperwork.
Right. It just gives you a little bit more time to deal with that paperwork, as well as the other things that you'll have in mind as you're considering whether or not to leave. And like you said, Bernie, if you decide not to take the offer, you simply just don't return that paperwork to the benefits center and it's automatically voided, no penalty to you. That's one of those tidbits that we, for lack of a better word, that we've come up with in our experience of helping Verizon employees through this process. And, we have built a Verizon Employees Guide to Retirement. And as a thank you to everybody for being here with us today, we're going to send this to you, and we talk about every step we think you should be taking in the sequence of the steps that you should be taking if you're going to transition into retirement. For many of you who are considering taking the offer, this is going to be a very helpful guide to you. Others who aren't going to take the offer, maybe you're a few years away but want to learn more about offers in the retirement process. We believe the timeline to retirement starts 10 years plus away from retirement, so there's going to be a lot of information that's helpful to you here too. We'll be emailing this to everybody tomorrow as a thank you again. But on that topic of that timeline of events around that retirement day, our next question: when should I call Fidelity about my 401k? And of course, when you retire, you have 3 options. You can keep your 401k assets in the Verizon 401k. You can roll them over to an IRA. You could take a withdrawal. Should you be considering a rollover, or should you be considering moving those assets? Typically after 2 weeks is a good time. 2 weeks after your last day of work is a good time to give Fidelity a call. So if your last day of work is December 2nd, waiting 2 weeks, after 2 weeks, you'll be able to process any rollovers from your 401k.
If you do submit an application, when will you find out whether or not you're accepted? So the expiration date for this offer is November 14th. And generally, it takes about a week for you to be notified as to whether or not you've been accepted. So you can expect to find out by on or around November 21st whether or not you've been accepted.
That's right. On to our next question. Should I take the offer if I'm not retirement eligible? We get this question quite a bit, and why that retirement eligibility can be important is because that allows you to receive your retirement pension, and it allows you to receive your retiree healthcare benefits. And, if you're a younger employee of Verizon who's looking to make a career change, that may not be as important to you. But if you're considering retiring, everybody's situation is going to be different. But if you're considering retiring and you're not yet retirement eligible, it's really important to think about those two factors, your pension and your retiree healthcare. What are you going to do? What are the costs of your health insurance going to be, your medical insurance going to be in retirement, and make sure that you have a plan in place for that.
Next question that we've been getting a lot of is the relocation allowance. What's involved there? So remember, this is a reimbursement program, and it's designed to repay you for costs that you incur in relocating and looking for another job, or perhaps tuition or training costs that you incur. A couple of things to keep in mind there. First of all expenditures need to be pre-approved by Verizon before you spend the money. Secondly, the money needs to be spent within a certain timeline. For relocation expenses, you need to spend the money within a year after your termination date. For training items such as tuition or job training, that money needs to be expended within 2 years after your termination date. And again, remember, this is a reimbursement program. You will expend the money and then you will get reimbursed from Verizon. Now, the maximum amount is $3,750. And the way that's computed is it's $750 for each year of credited service, up to a maximum of 5 years.
Leading into our last of our frequently asked questions before we get into some of the other questions that you've submitted here. Maybe the most important question: how do I know if I should take the offer and retire? And really leads into, the process we think you should consider when evaluating your options and making this decision. Again, it's one of the most important decisions that you can make of your career. We think it shouldn't be made in a vacuum. We think it should be made in the context of your broader retirement goals. We think it should be done through the retirement planning process, taking into account comprehensively all of your benefits, not just this ISP offer. This ISP offer is a tool. It's a sweetener that management offers to the associates. And it's important to make sure that the plan makes sense. And going through the process of putting all the information on paper so that you can evaluate those options can be illuminating, and it can help you identify what the right choice is for you. And what that right choice is going to be is not set in stone, right? You've got to be flexible and have to be open to whatever the results are going to be of that planning process.
Absolutely.
So encourage you to do that. That's something that we help all Verizon employees with. We encourage you to get started with that planning process. Typically years before retirement, if you're considering taking the offer, good idea to refresh your plan first before making a decision. If you haven't started that planning process, we can help you with that. There's still plenty of time to get the plan done. I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't put that planning process off a couple of weeks. But if you get started here today, there's plenty of time to put all of that information together that you would need. Getting into some questions now. Is this for East Coast employees? So this is CWA 13,000. And many of the people who receive the offer are indoor job titles. We understand that some system techs got the offer as well. But think maintenance administrators, think of switching equipment technicians, other job titles as well, of course, but many of the indoor titles in CWA 13,000. Okay, I'm of retirement age. Would I continue with my Verizon retirement health insurance without worrying about COBRA? Okay, so you're of retirement age. That's one component of being retirement eligible. Your retirement eligibility, you may have heard of the rule of 75, where your age and your years of service have to at least equal age 75. So that starts with being 50 years old or older with at least 25 years of service or more. Age 55 or older with at least 20 or more years of service. Age 60 or older with at least 15 years, so on and so forth. And both of those need to be true. You have to be at least 50 with at least 25 years of service, at least 55 with at least 20 years of service, so on and so forth. And if you have both of those, you're retirement eligible, and you would not have to worry about COBRA. If you are not retirement eligible, you'll continue to receive your employee healthcare benefits free of charge for 6 months, as you would, by the way, if you are retirement eligible. The difference is after 6 months, if you're not retirement eligible, you go on COBRA for 18 months. So again, it depends on your retirement eligibility if you are retirement eligible. Is it better to wait until I hit 30 years of service to retire? Does my pension increase at 30 years? I have heard different things. I am 55 years old with 25 years of service. This is a great question. It's one that we get quite a bit. Do I see that jump in my pension when I hit 30 years of service? And the reason you would see that jump in your pension at 30 years of service is if you hit 30 years before age 55. We talked about those age reductions before. If you're retirement eligible and have less than 30 years of service under the age of 55, there's an age reduction that applies to your benefit. If you hit 30 years of service under the age of 55, that age reduction goes away. So when you have 29 years of service and you look at your pension estimate online, you'd see maybe this number. And then once you hit 30 years of service, you might see this bump. Now, this person is 55 years old with 25 years of service. They're entitled to their full retirement pension at this point with no age reductions. So yes, accruing more service, more years of net credited service will work to your benefit. Your age starts to work against you as you get older as well. At this point, the biggest driver of your pension, if you're considering the lump sum, the biggest driver of your pension value quarter to quarter is going to be interest rates. If you're signed up for our e-blast, you'll see those quarterly interest rates released each quarter here.
You're right. This is an outstanding question. We get this question all the time. One thing to keep in mind is that these calculations are but one part of your financial plan. And you use the term, this person who asked the question used the term, is it better to wait until I hit 30 years of service? So Bobby just answered very well the question centered around your pension. But remember, your financial plan encompasses a lot of other components about your expenses. Are you thinking about having a second career? Are you going to work a little bit after you retire from Verizon? Life expectancy. There are a lot of other components of looking at your financial plan and measuring whether or not retiring at 30 years or 25 years is the best time. It's a numerical calculation when it comes down to looking at the size of your pension, but there are so many other areas of your plan that are important and relevant to you making this decision today. So that's why we encourage you to prepare a financial plan in the years leading up to retirement. But also, if you haven't started that process yet, this is a good time to get it started. There is enough time between now and the expiration date of this offer to put together a plan to allow you to comprehensively analyze all the components that go into making this decision and not just the size of your pension.
Okay, so I'm 51, will be 52 in December. If I take the offer, will I get paid a lump sum as if I'm retired at 55 since it's being waived? So I think this person is referring to the age reduction being eliminated. Yes, the age reduction is being eliminated. Let's say you're 52 years old on the nose to make the math easy. That's 6% per year under the age of 55. 12 months in a year times a 0.5% discount per month under the age of 55 for 3 years. Okay, so 36 months times 0.5% is an 18% reduction in your pension benefit. If you were to accept the offer, that 18% age reduction would go away. You know, that's another sweetener, right? And to Bernie's point, the whole plan still has to make sense. And, even sometimes even if today the present is the high watermark on your pension, there still can be so many benefits to remaining employed, like contributing to your 401k, getting the employer match from Verizon. The longer you work, the higher your Social Security benefit is going to be. So all of these factors need to be kept in mind. And the planning process helps you identify when the right time is for you to retire, when you're financially ready to retire. And that's something that we can certainly help with. At age 58, should I commence my pension after age 59 and a half? This is an interesting question. This is, I believe, referring to taxes and how taxes work in retirement accounts.
Yeah, looks that way.
Looks that way, yeah. So many of you are aware that when you elect your pension benefit, you have the option of rolling the assets into an IRA, and then you only pay taxes as you pull money out of the IRA. There are a couple of different roles that you can access to have penalty-free withdrawals from retirement accounts before 59 and a half. Typically, if you take a withdrawal before 59 and a half, there's a 10% penalty if it's a non-qualifying withdrawal. But there are two strategies that you can use to create penalty-free income. income. One is the age 55 rule, taking withdrawals directly from your 401k. And if you're 58 years old, you would qualify for the age 55 rule as well. The other is a 72T series of equal periodic payments, a 72T payment program, where you would establish a payment program for the longer of 5 years or until you reach age 59 and a half. So in your case, if you were to elect it today, you'd have to continue the 72T and continue those payments until age 63. There's more nuances to these rules. I'd recommend that you check out our YouTube channel, Hapanowicz Associates. Look at the Verizon retirement playlist on our YouTube channel and check out the video we did on how to create tax efficient wealth, or how to create tax efficient retirement income before 59 and a half. We talk about these two strategies in detail.
Yeah, so there are ways to avoid the penalty on retirement payments. But again, that's one part of the decision-making process of when to actually retire. This is the 59 and a half age can be a hurdle. You know, it's one thing that you have to consider whether you want to go today or you want to go at some point in the future. But there are techniques that you can use to avoid the penalty, not the taxes, but the penalty in retirement account withdrawals before age 59 and a half.
And so we described, what those rules look like at a very high level. Hard to answer the question should, unless we go through the retirement planning process, because that's, to Bernie's point, that's one component amongst many that have to fit together for your plan. Okay, I am under 50 years of age, but have 30 years of service. How will this offer affect me? Okay, so you have 30 years of service under the age of 55. You're fully retirement eligible, and the age reduction was already eliminated. Regardless of whether you accept an ISP offer or were to leave Verizon otherwise, you would not have an age reduction applied to your pension. All other components of the ISP offer that we discussed would apply to you. 66 with 26 years, do I start to lose money from my pension? Yeah, again, the additional years of net credited service continue to help you. At some point, the age starts to work against you. The biggest, if you're talking about the lump sum, as you are with your age being part of the calculation, the biggest driver quarter to quarter, the biggest driver that you'll see is going to be pension interest rates. And so again, please let us know if you'd like us to register you for our quarterly e-blast where we provide that information to you. That's a service that we provide the pre-retirees that we're working with within about 12 months or so. That's part of our guide to retirement. Within about 12 months or so, we really recommend you start looking at pension rates as you get closer to that retirement date, because quarter to quarter changes in rates can be tens of thousands of dollars. And so we watch that very closely for the retirees or the pre-retirees that we work with to help them maximize their benefits. Again, after we've already gone through the planning process and said, okay, this is the time that's right for this individual to go.
And one thing I'd like to add about the value of pensions versus interest rates, it's helpful to keep in mind that the way these things are calculated, the amount of money that you get, whether interest rates are at 1% or at 4% or 5%, you're going to get a lot less when rates are at 5% in a lump sum than you would at 1%. But remember, you're going to be investing that money at that rate of return on the bond side, on the fixed income side. So as those pension lump sums scale up and down, taking that into account. So it's really nice to maximize the value of that pension when interest rates are low, but when higher interest rates have caused that lump sum value, that predicted lump sum value to decline, keep in mind that you will be investing that money on the other side at much higher interest rates, and therefore you will be able to generate a higher stream of income. So on some level, it kind of equals out. We find that folks often find that comforting to understand the math and the relationship between interest rates and pension lump sums.
Absolutely. Okay, next question. In addition to filling out the form for getting the ISP, I have to also call HR for paperwork to retire. I'm taking the lump sum, not the monthly benefit. Right. So yeah, you would call the benefit center and you would order what's called the pension election and authorization form. And that form can be generated in your benefits connection online portal. They can generate it right there for you. You can ask them to mail that to you in physical mail, and then you can fill that out we will help you fill that out. We'll be on the phone calling the benefits center with you. And throughout that process, we'll take care of all the steps of getting information about your retiree healthcare benefits, electing those benefits when the time is right, coordinating with your retirement specialist at the benefits center. We'll help you with the Fidelity 401k after your retirement date as well. So it's the benefits center that you call. Will help you with each one of those steps in the process. For everybody else on the call, we think it's really important that there's a lot of moving parts in that retirement commencement process. And it's important to make sure that you have somebody helping you with that process who's been there before, knows what questions to ask, knows what to look out for, to double check that everything is done in the way that you need it done, to make sure that that you're maximizing the value of your pension benefit, that no issues or mistakes are happening. That can be really good. It's a really good thing to do. We encourage you to consider that. Okay, another question about getting the 50,000 and the 2,200 for each year, all at once since I'm 69, taxed all in 20. Yes, that will all be taxed in 2023. So that's something you can speak with your tax advisor on. And should you not have a tax advisor, we're happy to make that connection for you. That can help with that process, part of the retirement planning process, definitely.
And for those of you who are under the age of 67, the taxes can be a driving part of the decision of whether to take all of your payment allowance in installment or half of it in a lump sum. Remember, you're getting the $50,000 in a lump sum in the current year. Adding another lump sum would add to your tax liability for the year. So good idea to consult with your tax advisor about whether or not to split the payment allowance into installments and a lump sum.
All right. I think that's all of our questions for today. And unless anybody else has any last minute questions, again, want to thank everybody for their time here this evening. We know this is a big decision. We hope this information was helpful. We hope having the opportunity to hear some of the other questions that your colleagues had is helpful to you as you consider your options. We encourage you to update your retirement plan, use that retirement plan as a tool to help you and your family make the right decision for you. We're here to help if there's anything you need. Thanks again, and we hope you have a good rest of your night.
Thank you, everyone.